right, so in this lesson, we're going to be learning how to use the fetch API with a GET request. The API we're going to be using is this type.fit quotes, which is basically giving us a list of quotes with the authors. And we're going to be making this web request inside the web page when the page loads. The starting code will be in the video description. There'll be a link to it. I've done the styling for us and just some of the font loading. So we're using the Robo font like we did in the last section. All right, with that being said, let's get started. First thing I want to do is I want to get my elements. So I'm going to say const quotes el, and we're going to say document query selector, and we're going to do quotes. And this is getting the quotes container right here. Second thing we want to do is we want to get the error. So we'll say const error el, and el just stands for element. And we'll get the error. So now that we have that, we want to add an event listener. So we're going to say is document.add event listener, and this is going to be the DOM, all capital letters, content loaded, and we're going to call a function, we haven't created this yet, called get quotes. And we're just going to make sure this works. So we're going to say function get quotes, and we're going to alert this works. So we write a little bit of code and then we test that it works, and it does. Now this function, because we're using promises, is going to be an async function. All right, and when we use async functions, we always use a try and a catch. So we want to catch the error. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make the web request. So we're going to say const request or response, because that's what we're going to be getting back, await fetch, and then the name of the URL, which is right here. Now, because it's a GET request, this is all we have to do. I'll show you how to do a POST request in another video. Then we want to get the JSON, so we'll say quotes JSON, and that's going to be await, because this is another promise, believe it or not, response.json. And we're going to test if this works by just console logging quotes JSON. So we're just making sure everything works as we go along, just because we tend to make a lot of mistakes, and it looks like this is working, and that is a ridiculous amount of quotes. All right. So now what we want to do is we want to cover our error case. So an error can be like a 404 or the web server is down or whatever. So that's why another reason why this try catch is important. So if there is an error, what we want to do is we want to say error etl style. So we're going to get our style display, and we're going to say block. And then just for developers, we just want to console log the error. So we can actually do it like this so that we know it's an error. And let's save that. And the way we'll test this is we'll just take out the E from type, and that did get us a 404 error. So put that E back so we know that works. So now we've covered the error case, and we have our JSON, so we just need to loop through it. So we're going to create another function, and this function is going to be called add quote. So function add quote, and this will take in a quote. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to create our quote el, and we can do that by document create element, and this is going to be a, what did we call this? An article, yeah. So this is an article, which is basically a div, but yeah, it's basically a div. There's no buts about it. And then we want to add to the class list for the article a thing called quote, because we have this style right here for quotes, really basic style. And then we want to also add the text for the quote. Now, not all the quotes have an author, so I didn't bother figuring out the author stuff, but basically the text content will allow us to populate that. So we can say quote, and then if we go back to our JSON, you can see it's quote.text. So that's where we're getting the text from. Okay. Now this won't do anything because we've just created the element. We have to append it. So we say quotes, which is our quote container, append child, because this is a child of the quotes element. And we can just say, oops, wrong place, quote EL, like that. All right, so that will add a quote. So to actually use it, what we can do is we can do quotes JSON for each. And I actually don't like quotes JSON. I think it's just better if it's quotes, just so that we know we're looping through a bunch of quotes for each, capital E, and then we can say add quote. So let's see if this works. And there was an error, and let's see. So it's saying append child can't be null. Let's see, append child. Oh, that's funny. So I spelled quote wrong. So sometimes this stuff happens. So I spelled quote. I spelled it as quote. I don't know what that is. So let's fix that. Okay, so no big deal. So now this is working. Looking good. So yeah, we're gonna run into errors in these videos. It's not a big deal. So this for each actually takes in a few arguments. It or passes in a few arguments. Right now we're just using the quote, but it also passes in an index and an array, or the full array of quotes. We're just going to use the index, so we'll say index because we don't want 1600 quotes. No, we could. We just want a certain number, so we can say quote and say if index is less than 10, or I should say greater than 10. Then return. So this will only show 10 quotes. So if you just want to show 10 quotes, you can show 10. If you want to show 15, you can show 15. But yeah, so that's how you would make a GET request using the Fetch API. Like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please let me know, and I will catch you on the flip side.